Why do we worry about ability to repay and qualified mortgage so much? Because the borrower really has an avenue to come back at you. First off, they have a 3-year window in letter F1, small letter A on page 12 to bring action, which includes several things that aren't good for you. Letter B, kind of a big one. They have forever to use your lack of compliance with ability to repay as a defense for foreclosure. So something you don't do today or do incorrectly today could come back to bite you 20 some years later on a 30-year mortgage. So that letter B is a big one. And then the last thing on this page essentially says if you made what you thought was a QM, but you screwed up something related to the QM criteria, then it defaults back to ability to repay, which is the standard or baseline criteria and factors that had to be accounted for, which if you're trying to achieve a QM status, you need to check those boxes anyway. Page 13. This is new, but it's not. I'll explain. Letter G, the heading at the top of the page is ability to repay, policy, procedure, and record retention. So let's talk policy and procedures first. G1, small letter A, if we're talking about non-QMs, portfolio QMs, and the balloon QM loans, and I'm also going to add in there the original general QM, and then the temporary QM because they were set to die, but they didn't. Okay, and I guess they're set to die, but likely won't because of the delay. They're probably going to be categorized in G1, small letter A. Written policies and procedures are not required for those QM designations to achieve them, but they come highly recommended. Number one, it's going to help you with this rule, the QM rules and the ability to pay rules that have been in place for years. But number two, it's going to help you mitigate fair lending risk. It essentially hands a playbook to your team that says, here's how we do this, so that you maintain some sort of consistency. Otherwise, you have a lender over here that's underwriting things slightly different than a lender over here. They're checking the same boxes, but maybe they're not giving the same weights to the same things. And that's not a good idea. Make sure you've got a playbook that says, here's how we're going to do this. So it comes highly recommended that you have written policies and procedures for how you're going to carry out ability to repay and qualified mortgage statuses. Now, that's with respect to the QM rules that were already there. These two new QMs, the revised general and the new season QM, look close at letter B. If you're going to try to go there, you have to have written policies and procedures for how you're going to do underwriting that includes verification and consideration of the elements that you're required to gather along the way. You must outline this. Now, everybody listening would have had to have gone here if the temporary QM was not going away. If you're listening and you contact an investor and they say, no, we're going to go with the new general QM instead of the temporary QM, then you're going to have to go here. So you may not get an option to avoid letter B because of your investors. But if your investors say, nope, status quo, we're staying with the temporary QM until they figure it out, then you may not have to go here unless you want to travel into the season QM realm. Now, I think it's a good idea, and it comes highly recommended that you have written procedures for all of this, regardless of whether they're required by the regulation. Because one, it helps you comply with this rule. Two, it mitigates fair lending risk. But I'll leave that up to you.